So 24 years sentence is not enough.
Don't take my word for it. The judge herself said 24 years is not enough. You heard it directly from the bench. 24 years is not enough from the judge herself. She said if this case were tried, he would get 100 years.
我那个医生哈兼那个病人的那个陈志的审判，今天是8月28号，在皇后区这边在开庭，今天做最后的审判。那早上我们是收到通知9点钟就过来了，但是他又改到2点半，所以我们在法庭从早上9点等到下午2点半，等待开庭。现在很多记者过来哈，基本上这一排坐的都是记者。
My sexual assault has affected my family and the people who love me as they notice the change in my spirit and everyday interactions. However, I have not shared any of the details with them due to shame and fear. The sexual assault has cost me emotionally, mentally, and physically. My hands shake constantly and I don't feel safe anywhere. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and am getting treatment. My therapist explained to me that I was in fight or flight mode since Dr. Cheng assaulted me and what kind of damage he has done to me mentally, emotionally, and to my physical health. I still have second thoughts about getting medical treatment and put off treatment until my pain or symptoms become unbearable. Dr. Cheng has taken away my sense of self. I'm broken and have angry outbursts. That day-to-day survival is a challenge due to the sexual assault. Your Honor, I realize that you have many factors to consider when fashioning your sentence. Still, I ask you the following question. How much are the lives of female hospital patients seeking medical care worth? How much priority should be placed on communicating that the fullest weight of the law will be used to protect female patients from the soul-shattering devastation that doctor sexual assault brings? These women are worth everything. Dr. Cheng is a sexual predator disguised in a white coat and used his position as a doctor to feed his perverted desires. Dr. Cheng enjoyed my vulnerable state and took pleasure in sexually abusing me and other female patients. Dr. Cheng digitally penetrated my vagina, then whispered that everything is okay. He engaged in these acts without my consent or permission and without a valid medical purpose. At his plea hearing, Dr. Cheng stated that the vaginal digital penetration he performed on me in the recovery area was part of the prescribed medical treatment. However, this was never previously discussed at my consult visit or my intake appointment the day of the procedures. I was not having a procedure for gynecological treatment.
我们看到的这一段录像是检察官皇后区的检察官在法庭上就是宣读那个受害者的一些陈词，因为受害者是不可能出现在这个法庭上。那就是其实整个过程呢，就是为了避免受害者在公开的法庭上再次面对录像跟证词的痛苦，所以这个案件就最后是采取接受了这个罪犯的认罪协议，所以他最终才判了24年。如果说是用那个大陪审团的话，他的罪行，他这个年限是非常长的。用法官的话来说，判他100年都没问题。可是就有一个考虑到不想让受害者出庭作证，那就简化了这个流程，所以导致他的那个判刑才24年。当然这件事引起了就是受害者律师的不满。受害者律师甚至就觉得说他们就是检方没有去彻查真相，然后就是一开庭的时候就两个检察官就读了那个来自这个受害者的一些陈词。
Dr. Cheng's Alford plea was both shocking, cruel, and a gotcha surprise. I only found out about the details of the plea at the hearing on June 30th, 2025, because previous conversations with the prosecution provided misleading information about the plea details. The Alford plea is an affront to me and all women who are victims of his sexual assaults. Judge Pandit-Durant, I implore that your sentencing of Dr. Cheng shows his other victims and me that we matter and that we are worth it. I plead with you, as you deliberate Dr. Cheng's sentence, that you impose the maximum sentence because we are worth it. Thank you.
Your Honor, I will be reading another statement submitted by one of the victims from New York Presbyterian Hospital. Good afternoon, Judge. I want to tell you how my life has changed. There were difficult times, shocking times, traumatic moments for me. Learning that something bad had happened to me, my life changed completely. It wasn't the same. It stayed in my head. Every day I thought more and more about what had happened. From that moment on, I didn't want to leave my room because I was traumatized by what happened. I thought everyone was going to hurt me. It was on my mind all the time. And that's how I got very depressed. I felt angry, I felt afraid, I fell into a depressive state. I didn't want to eat, I couldn't sleep, to the point where I wouldn't want to go to the hospital because I thought about what happened to me all the time. With tears in my eyes, I tell you that what happened to me is too much for me. Since there are people like this who hurt people in this way, I want to tell this person who did this to accept the consequences and pay for hurting people. People like him shouldn't be free. Just like that, he won't be able to continue hurting people anymore. I hope justice is served and that he pays as the law dictates. I also want to thank the authorities who acted to arrest this individual. The defendant, Zhi Alan Cheng, committed a series of unfathomable, heinous acts against women. He did so as both a private citizen, sexually assaulting women who were intimate partners of his, and as a doctor, sexually assaulting women who he only encountered because of his time as a gastroenterologist at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He took advantage of his position as a doctor and used it to sexually assault vulnerable patients who came to the hospital in need of help. One of the most disturbing aspects of the defendant's crimes, and one that we at the District Attorney's Office struggled with, was that none of these women were aware that they had survived a sexual assault. Women who trusted the defendant enough to date him, stay at his apartment, and see him for months, even years, were unaware of what happened to them. Patients who went to the hospital, some ending up on life support, all feeling vulnerable and desperate for help, were unaware of what happened to them. Some patients felt that something was wrong after these attacks, but their complaints were dismissed by medical personnel at the time. The defendant's decision to attack the unconscious concealed his crimes for years. His attacks might have never been uncovered at all, but for the defendant himself. His decision to videotape his actions on his cell phone ultimately brought what he had done to light. It's because of those acts that the defendant has pled guilty to abusing 8 different victims in Queens over a 2-year period. As a consequence of his crimes, he will serve over 2 decades in prison, and we anticipate that he will register as a sex offender for the rest of his life upon release from prison. District Attorney Katz would like to recognize some of the many people whose efforts brought Zhi Alan Cheng to justice. The brave survivor who came forward initially to report the defendant's crimes, seeking to make sure that no other women were hurt by this defendant. The detectives of the New York City Police Department Special Victims Squad and Police Digital Forensics Unit, who meticulously collected evidence and spent countless hours analyzing an enormous amount of digital data seized from the defendant, which was ultimately found to contain the recordings of his assaults, and the assistant district attorneys, who, along with detective investigators Richard Santangelo and Detective Julia Jollins of the Queens District Attorney's Office, tirelessly worked for months to identify survivors of the defendant who would otherwise have remained unaware of his crimes against them. Perhaps one of the most disturbing things I have ever had to do as an assistant district attorney is telephone multiple women and inform them that years ago they were sexually assaulted, and ask them to come to our office to watch the videos of the sexual assault occur so they could identify themselves. During those meetings that followed, I saw the horror on their faces, the confusion, and saw their ability to trust shattered. Each of them struggled to watch their bodies being violated by the defendant, but they did. Each of the survivors played an important part in bringing the defendant to justice. It was through countless phone and in-person conversations over the course of multiple years with those survivors and members of their families that we built a compelling case that resulted in the defendant's decision to plead guilty. The Assistant District Attorneys of the Special Victims Bureau built relationships with these survivors and maintained consistent contact with each of them throughout this multi-year-long process that began prior to indictment until just before the defendant entered this plea. Any suggestion that the disposition of this case was not discussed with each survivor prior to the plea is simply false. In fact, no survivor expressed concern or disappointment with the disposition, and many expressed relief at not having to endure the painful aspects of a trial. Others expressed a desire to put this entire experience behind them as soon as possible. This disposition saves them having to relive those horrifying moments in court where they would have to watch the defendant's recordings of his abuse. His guilty plea brings to a close this terrible chapter in their lives while ensuring that they need not worry about the dark cloud of a potential appeal hanging over them. After the plea was entered, a few survivors criticized aspects of the plea. While we are aware that there are lawsuits related to this case, as prosecutors, our job is to achieve justice in our criminal courts. Civil courts exist to address any issues that are not under our purview. The aims of an ethical, fair, and effective prosecution are to hold the defendant accountable for his crimes, to provide justice for his victims, and to protect the public. Those goals were achieved here. Notably, because of this plea, the public will be safe from the defendant, who will be sentenced to nearly a quarter of a century in prison. He, of course, can no longer practice medicine. In addition, because of this plea, 8 women and their families will be spared the ordeal of a trial. As a result of their participation in this case that led to the defendant pleading guilty, the brave survivors can know that because of them, the defendant was stopped and others were spared from enduring what they had. The defendant will receive 24 years in prison, and after that, he will remain on supervised release for another decade. Plus, we anticipate he will remain on the sex offender registry for the rest of his life. He has admitted his guilt in crimes he committed against all 8 survivors he was indicted for, and is receiving significant jail sentences for each. He entered a plea of guilty for every woman he assaulted in his home. He entered a plea of guilty for every woman he assaulted in the hospital. He entered a plea of guilty to the one survivor for whom he has no video of his actions. It seems today marks the end of this case. The book is closed, so to say. Yet it still feels like a chapter is missing. Why did he do this? Unlike so many of the defendants who stand at that table, he set himself up for a great life, did well in school, went to college, medical school, became a doctor. He seemingly has a supportive family and friends, but all of that was thrown away. In sum, the defendant's sentence is severe, more severe than some people receive after conviction in a homicide trial. We respectfully ask the court to impose the promised sentence. As the defendant serves his many years in prison, he will have ample time to contemplate how he violated the women he took to his home, how he exploited the vulnerability of the patients who trusted him with their care, and how he betrayed the most sacred oath he took as a physician. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And counsel, did you want to say anything before I sentence you fine?
No, Your Honor, we rely on the promised sentence, although I believe Dr. Cheng has something to say.
I want to apologize to the victims of my heinous crime, and I will spend the rest of my sentence on the program. Thank you.
Okay. So this was a negotiated plea. I don't believe that you deserve to be called a doctor anymore, so I will not refer to you as a doctor. You took an oath as a doctor to save lives, to take care of people. You did not, you physically harmed people by sexually assaulting them. You did not stab them or punch them, but you certainly sexually assaulted them, and therefore you completely violated any oath that you took as a doctor. And as Ms. Richards indicated, you had a great life. You are educated, you have family support, you're a doctor, you were probably looked upon by others to help, and yet you violated the trust of everybody that you came in contact with, your family and all of its victims. And we only know of 8 victims. Unfortunately, I believe there might be many, many more out there who may not even know that they're being victimized by you. The arrogance of you also to videotape your crimes. It's such arrogance that you would not be caught for what you did because you drug these women or you sexually abuse them, and then you videotape them. For what purpose? And while this is a plea that some victims are not happy with, I can understand the people trying to negotiate a disposition in this case. Rather than have a trial, it would be horribly sensational. The victims would have to come here and testify again about what happened, to relieve, basically, to be sexually assaulted again in open court, to watch the videos of themselves being sexually assaulted in front of an open courtroom, in front of strangers. The jurors will be sitting there and watching what occurred and what happened to them. So while I don't believe that 24 years is enough for the crimes that you've committed, I understand, and in terms of balancing what the victims would suffer again, should there be a trial, and they would be convicted of that trial, I have no doubt, with the evidence that is here in this case, and you would just get maybe over 100 years in jail. But I can understand the balancing of the victims having to suffer again, go through trial in front of strangers, compared to the much, much less term of prison that you will be getting. So with respect to the counts, count 3, the court sentence, I've also reviewed the probation report, and I will abide by the promised sentence. On count 3, the court sentence is 7 years. On count 5, the court sentence is 7 years. On count 7, the court sentence is 7 years. Each of them to run consecutively to each other, but concurrently to the sentence on rape in the first degree. And on the rape in the first degree count, the court sentence is the first degree count. The court sentence is 24 years. And again, that sentence to run consecutively to the 3 sentences under count 3, 5, and 7, which are the sexual abuse in the first degree counts. On the sexual abuse in the first degree count under count 1, the sentence is 2 years to run concurrently with all of the other sentences. And the aggregate sentence is 24 years incarceration to be followed by 10 years of post-release supervision. There are also 9, 20, 28, and 53.
Those are the rape in the first degree counts.
And those are the sentences 24 years to run concurrently with each other, and the sentences on the rape, on the sexual abuse in the first degree counts. Okay.
And we also have the 2 orders of protection.
Okay, I've signed the order of protection. You are to have no contact with these individuals named in the order of protection. Additionally, no contact with any of the victims, whether they were on the indictment or not. You are not to have any contact with them by phone, email, any kind of social media. Do not have anybody else contact them on their behalf as well. Thank you.
Your Honor, I just ask that counsel acknowledge having reviewed the probation investigation report.
Yes, Your Honor, we reviewed it, and our only objection has been addressed by the people.
Mr. Cheng, the total mandatory surcharge fees of $1,425. That's a $300 mandatory surcharge fee, $25 crime victim fee, a $50 DNA fee, as well as a $50 SORA fee, and a $1,000 supplemental sexual offenders victims fee, which will be payable by inmate funds. That is the sentence of the court.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is Mr. Dana here? No.
For his family, for the victims as well. And today he gets to start moving on. I would say when this case began, he was looking at a significantly lengthier sentence, so I understand the disappointment from some of the victims here, but this is an individual who the prosecutors saw was troubled and someone who had a severe drug addiction and suffered mental health issues and has now made great strides into moving on with his life. And I know it's easy for him as the defendant to say that, and his hope is that the victims can do the same, and one day he'll be back out and moving on with his life.
Is Dr. Cheng going to say what he knows about these other videos of other alleged crimes?
We've already had the opportunity to meet with the district attorney's office, and he's given them everything about them.
He said everything he knows about those videos.
That's correct. He's tried to be as helpful as he possibly can.
Will he be prosecuted in other districts?
That I can't speak to. No one has reached out as of yet.
How many other victims has he told them about?
Oh, I can't
does he admit to other crimes?
I can't get into that, of course.
Well, I mean, when you say he's told that, does he believe he has victimized other people?
I can't get into that. He's pled guilty to 8 victims. He was sentenced for those 8 today. And it's our belief that that is the end of this case.
This is just moments ago, the attorney for Dr. Cheng said that Dr. Cheng has said everything he knows about all the other victims or he didn't say victims, he said everything he knows about the other videos that the DA herself has talked about. But the assistant district attorney did not confirm it. What do you think about, not necessarily the veracity of what his attorney said or what Dr. Cheng said, but about the fact that we are not getting any answers about the other alleged crimes?
And that's the important part here, is that the public is not served by this agreement. We don't know to what extent these victims have suffered. We don't know who these victims are. All we do know is that there are thousands of hours of videos of Dr. Cheng and possibly others sexually abusing, assaulting, raping women, and we have no answers. There are women walking the streets of Queens right now who went to New York Presbyterian Hospital as a patient and left a victim, and they will never know because the DA had an opportunity to uncover that information. When they entered into this plea agreement, they had an opportunity to force former Dr. Cheng to tell us everything he knows and go through these videos to tell us so that we can inform these victims, and they failed to do so. Something needs to change in Queens.
So 24 years sentence is not enough?
Don't take my word for it. The judge herself said 24 years is not enough. You heard it directly from the bench. 24 years is not enough from the judge herself. She said if this case were tried, he would get 100 years. And then claimed that because of the victims, because we're sparing the victims the ordeal of going to trial, that's why we're entering this agreement. That's not true. As you all are well aware, the majority of the known victims have objected to this deal. They are not comfortable with it. They, in their victim impact statements, are referencing the fact that they are misled by the district attorney's office. They have been misled by the ADAs in handling this case. And instead of acknowledging that, the district attorney's office takes the opportunity immediately after reading those witness impact statements, takes the opportunity to trash those victims once again and to victimize them one more. It's sickening to see what I just saw. It's sickening to see it because this tells everyone in Queens and anyone who's listening that there's always a deal to be made in this district attorney's office. No matter how good the evidence is, no matter how dead to rights of a sexual predator is videotaping assaults on women, they'll make a deal. That's unacceptable.
If the defendant is on good behavior in prison, is there opportunity to get half of the sentencing?
I don't know about half the sentencing, but many times the full sentence is not served. So
is it by law that they can get up to half the sentence if they're on good behavior? By law?
I don't know by law. I don't think he'll be serving half of the sentence. There are many instances he will not serve a full sentence, which you have to take into consideration. He will be registered as a sex offender, but he'll be able to restart his life. I mean, if he's out by the time he's 50 years old, he'll be able to resume his life. These victims won't. And the victims that are unknown are still never going to be discovered. Okay?
Can he be retried if new victims come forward?
Well, that actually begs a funny question because we are aware of other victims that were not tried in this case that have been outside of this jurisdiction, but because of the Queens DA's lackadaisical approach here, that statute of limitations has run on another rape that occurred in Westchester, or is about to run. So unfortunately, time will tell. I mean, first order of business is finding out who these victims are. Has New York Presbyterian Hospital come forward and let all of his patients know that this is something that is out there? He's been now convicted. He's been now pled guilty to these crimes. Did they let the public know that there was a predator? Did they inform their patients? No, absolutely not. How come this multi-billion-dollar hospital system, with all the political power that it has, seems to get away unscathed here in this agreement? Why is that? Who stands to benefit? Because it sure as hell isn't the victims. The victims objected to this agreement. So who stands to benefit here? There are no winners.
Has there been a criminal proceeding against the New York Presbyterian Hospital?
There hasn't been a criminal proceeding that I'm aware of, but certainly on the civil aspect, we have been pursuing litigation against them. And as in our complaint, their drugs, right? Dr. Cheng used medical grade sedatives, medication and drugs that he obtained from New York Presbyterian Hospital. They knew what was going on. They failed to act. They were aware of a prior complaint against him, and they let him continue to practice. And he did it again, just as you would expect. New York Presbyterian Hospital, they have unclean hands. We represent 5.
5?
Yes. There are 8 that are known in this indictment. There are other victims that are out there that didn't want to proceed. Okay. There are some victims that have passed away. You may have heard some mention of a victim that was severely ill and on life support at the time. Think about that. Dr. Cheng sexually assaulted a woman on her deathbed in New York Presbyterian Hospital.
So if still a new victims will show up, they still can go to your office?
They certainly can. I mean, we want to make sure that all of the victims are well informed. We want to make sure that they are heard and that they understand that they have a support system.
大家好，我是田颖啊。今天就是8月28号，在皇后区的那个高院那个陈志的那个性侵案，到现在今天已经就是做了判决，他拿24年。那个受害者的律师也是对此表示不满，连法官当庭就说了，判他100年都不为过。可是最终因为跟 DA 做了 deal， 所以我们判了24年，所以这个案子到此告一段落。